Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Well, I'm back after a long gap of 3 weeks. Not intended absence, I can assure you. I haven't been very well at all. Neither has my poor lady wife either, although I was slightly worse. I'm a man, of course I was worse. Basically we've had some nasty viral infection. I've got to be honest, at first you thought, oh, it's COVID. No, it wasn't. It's actually worse. I won't bore you with it all, but yeah, I really felt bad. Basically a sort of a respiratory infection and not being able to sleep at night, 3 hours of sleep, you know, oh, very unpleasant. Anyway, I was determined to get back this weekend, or this week. I'm actually recording this, I'm just going to move my camera slightly. I'm actually recording this for you on Sunday the 18th of February. I'll explain the significance of that later on. But I managed to, pretty much as promised, get the Mitsubishi Zero from Eduard, the 1/48 scale you see just beside me rotating here. I want to get that finished in February so that I was able to start my next project, which is the big one I've been waiting for a long time, of course, which is the Mosquito. We'll talk about it later. Anyway, in the meantime, please forgive me if I'm a bit coffee and sluttery because I'm still not 100%, but I felt I'd recovered probably enough to be presentable. And thank you very much for all the warm wishes. I've had quite a lot of messages from many of you, actually, many of you. Obviously I didn't go into a lot of detail what was wrong with me, and it wasn't life-threatening, but very debilitating and very unpleasant, I've got to say. And I didn't get the sort of support from the medical professionals that I hoped to, if I'm honest. Anyway, they basically said no antibiotics, you know, and what they didn't grasp was I had this really extreme cough. I mean, very extreme, such that I was struggling to breathe at times. And anyway, I won't bore you with it, but I've been pretty unwell. However, it didn't help my cause with super glue and other things, building this, of course. So anyway, the model is finished. I'll zoom you in. I'm actually very pleased with the results. More pleased with the results than I was with the experience, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I thought we should share my experience, because I had this criticism previously about, oh well, you haven't built a recent Eduard kit when you made these comments about Eduard. And I thought, well, I do want to build this kit. You know, for the Pearl Harbor anniversary, also because of this. I want to put it together with my Tomcat, although I don't think I'll be able to do that in quite the way I envisaged. Not least because Eduard didn't give us any pilot figure, but anyway. I wanted to get it built, and I wanted to give them a fair crack of the whip, and people said, look, build one of the more recent ones, you know, not something from 20, 30 years ago. Okay, well I have done. I'm quite disappointed with it, if I'm honest. It's not terrible. I don't want to say to anybody, don't buy this kit, but you need to watch this video because you need to be prepared for the things you're going to face. And it did not live up to expectations at all. And it seems to fall, I'll get to the detail in a minute, but it seems to fall into the same traps that some of the earlier Eduard kits fell into. They seem to be very good at making it have great surface detail and panel lines and beautiful accuracy. But it just didn't go together well. It just didn't. I'll explain why. Anyway, let's zoom you in. You can have a look at the finished thing, because actually, I think you'll probably agree, it looks pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with it, considering the issues with the kit and the issues with my health and all the rest of it. Been fighting an uphill battle with this, it seems. But yeah, it's come out as a very nice looking Zero. It looks very colourful, I've got to say. My camera's doing its usual trick. I've realised my camera, by the way, what it does. Anything that's light coloured it makes look very dark, and it overemphasises the colour saturation. Anything that's very dark it makes look very light. With the Sea Harrier, if you remember, it made it look very light, which was wrong. And now it's doing the same with this. It's making this look very dark, overemphasising the colours. I'm looking at the screen now that you're looking at, and it's definitely doing its usual trick of going way OTT. It's almost like a Disney version. The blues and the reds and the colour of the camo is not quite as extreme as it looks there. It's a lot paler, I can assure you, anyway. But here it is. So What I will do, many of you will have already seen the montage of photos of the build, which I'll put a link in over below or at the side at the end of the video. What I will do though is I will go through the photographs, not every one of them, but the pertinent ones. I'll go through the photos first, and I will. No, in fact, we'll go through the instructions first. I think that will make more sense. So what I'm going to do is very gently pop it over there, out of the way, let it carry on with its little spinning around routine, which it seems to enjoy. I'll also show you, I think what I'll do, in fairness, because you've seen it at a bit of a distance, aren't you? So let's stop the Decal routine for a second. Let's actually zoom you in a bit for this. I'll actually pick it up. I've got the gloves on, so we're okay. Let's have a little closer look. So you can see that I've done very mild weather, and this, don't forget, this was basically going into its first action. So these weren't heavily weathered at this point. They hadn't been in battle, most of them. So we've got a little bit of dirt and grime there. And by the way, if Mr. Flory's watching, I used his Flory Wash grime, which I thought was ideal for this, because it didn't merit the dark dirt, but the grime was just kind of right for an aircraft carrier operations without overly weathering it. So I didn't do any real chipping much, just a tiny bit here and there, tiniest hints of it. So I've got the grime, and I've got to be careful with my canopy because I know it's going to fall off. In fact, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll remove that canopy, and I'll let you have a look into the cockpit, because I think that might have some merit if I can avoid dropping it. Excuse me. Let's have a look in this cockpit, see what you think. See if I can get it in close enough. Whether the focus will work. I think it will. I think you should be able to get a decent idea what it's like. Yeah. But yeah, I was fairly pleased with it. Now this kit comes with a lot of the Eduard photo etch, which I'll talk about in more detail in a second. But it's quite laborious. You know, it's not easy to use. You're going to have to do a heck of a lot of work because you've got to modify all the existing parts, and they sort of have this attitude of, we'll provide all the raised detail that you're going to then have to cut off, even though it comes, you know, as a set as it does, and it's sort of whoops, and it's sort of I think I'm zoomed in too much. I do that too often. There we go. Zoom out a little bit, get a bit better focus that way. So, you know, you can see, yeah, you can see we've got a nice finish, and I'm fairly happy with the paint finish and all that stuff. But there were lots of issues along the way. A lot of problems, as Cilla Black would say. So I'm going to pop that over there in the closed position. Let's talk about them in specifics. And I used this first. So I've been accused of being anti-Eduard. Somebody said you don't like him from the Czech Republic, even though my wife drives a Skoda, which we absolutely love. The car we've had for 9 years, I think now, and we've got no intention of ever changing, frankly, and not for the foreseeable future anyway, until it falls apart. So we've got no problem with anything from the Czech Republic. I've previously, in my earlier life, had friends from the Czech Republic. The only objections I have are to the material, the quality of the product. And some of the quality of this product is really excellent, some of it is not excellent at all. So let's just get into it. So starting off with the instructions, and I said when I did the initial review, so I'm going to give this a final rating at the end, of course, out of 10 of what I think it is, what is the true rating after build. The only model I've ever done where the rating didn't drop was 10 out of 10 and remained 10 out of 10. The only model was that motorbike. Okay, everything else it always drops a little bit. So I think I gave this sort of a 9.5 out of 10. It's going to be a lot lower than that. Anyway, let's get into it. This instruction manual, though, when this first came out, 2021, so it's quite recent. You know, it's the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, of course. And I think they did this absolutely superbly. And I take my hat off to Eduard the way they presented this, with this beautiful, exactly what I'm always screaming out for, with the historical documents, photographs, absolutely just what we're wanting. Details about the background to the attack, how the war started, the Japanese position that they were in, talks about the diplomacy, the preparations for the attack. Then we've got photographs from Pearl Harbor itself with Zeros flying around low level. We've got crash Zeros here, got the Arizona exploding and so on and so on. I tell you now, that element of these instructions gets 10 out of 10 from me. Absolutely one of the best I've ever seen. Excellent. I'd love to see more of that from Eduard and from everybody else. Then we get into the build. So I'm just going to zoom in quickly. I'll flick through this fairly rapidly. So this is what I was talking about. So this first page really is preparing all the inner areas of the cockpit and fuselage. And you know, you've got a lot of work to do because you're going to have... There's nothing wrong with having to do a lot of work as long as it's, you know, as long as it's reasonable and it's going to give you a great result. There's a lot of stuff, you'll see in some of the photographs I showed, and I'll go through them in a second. A lot of PE bending, you've got bits of plastic you've got to remove, all these red bits of plastic you've got to remove, and then replace them with PE. This is a fiddly, very long process, and there's a lot of it. You know, you don't end up with a lovely cockpit like I've got there without quite a lot of effort. But I don't really understand why they... I mean, I didn't bother with the pedals, that's the one thing I didn't do, because I knew that you never see them. But things like the seat belts, it's PE again, and it just goes on and on and on and on. This took a couple of weeks, Christmas, New Year, it took me to build just the cockpit. Then you get these parts, and everything so far is okay. You'll know in a minute, you're going to see my... I'm going to zoom you out. You're going to see me having... a sort of a written rant in a minute, because you're going to see that I've written lots of notes here. I made it much clearer than they've done the kinetic one. Now this is not as bad as the kinetic sea area, but it does nod to it too often, and there's things that remind me of it too often. So far, so good. It's fiddly, it's a bit messy, but somebody said in the comments, no pain, no gain. The problem you get with this kit is that there is, in the end, as it goes on, there is far too much pain and far too little gain. But the cockpit, whilst I don't like the fiddliness of it, I'm sure they could make it simpler. I'm sure they could, some of these designs they've done. But overall, I think it's quite good. And you can see the results look amazing. Then once that's done, then it really starts to come off the rails. Let me show you. So we've now built our cockpit, the instruments are all done. Now we come to putting the guns in, and this is where my written comment and ranting starts. So the guns go into this very strange sort of bulkhead that's got a very, very, and this is true throughout the kit, a very, very vague instruction, a very, very vague actual location physically, with a poor fit, causes alignment problems later. Oh yeah, it's going to cause you some alignment problems, it really is. Now you've got these lovely little oxygen bottles, none of which you probably end up seeing, but I painted those quite nice. I think we may have seen that. Now, again, so far so good. So just zooming back, we've got now into the two halves of the fuselage. This all went together really nicely, in fairness. No major issues, no major seams or nasty gaps. Even, although this was bad, even the location of the dropping the whole of the cockpit in underneath went better than expected. And then we start working on the wings, and this is where things are about to start to go horribly, horribly wrong. So you're putting in all the wheel wells, basically. That all went in fine. And now you'll see straight away with all my remarks, this is where it all goes badly, badly wrong. So, we've got the top wing and the bottom wing. So the bottom wing is one piece and the top wing is two pieces. Out of tolerance, too deep in terms of chord we're talking, front to back. Too deep for the lower wing. So you've got an overlap at the leading edge. So here we go, here's the first one. So this is the first time I encountered something that was pretty stupid, to be quite honest. The tolerance is just wrong. It's almost like they're from two different manufacturers and didn't talk to each other. So you end up with a lip, so you've got to very carefully, what I did is I tried to position it in a way that I got a slight bit at the front and a slight bit at the back to try not to ruin the effect of the shaping. But it shouldn't be necessary to have this. It didn't fit as they had explained it would. Then here, there's some things in this kit that makes no sense. So for example, we have an arrestor hook that can be down, but you can't have the flaps down. You can't have the flaps open. The flaps, they're just fixed. Find that very, very odd. That's not been thought through at all. You see here, I've complained about that. I said, why no flaps? And yet you can have the hook down. Makes no sense. Well, there you go, I've written it there. So we're already into problems. The way that they portray this, it doesn't work out like that at all. And then we get into one of the most horrible things in the kit. So this is now the tailplanes. Too big in terms of thickness. Now have a close look at this. I don't want anybody to turn around and say, well, it's the way you've done it. It's you've done it wrong. So we're looking at this, the plug here that goes into the slot. And here's the slot. Oops. Here's the slot, and I'll show you this in photo form. But it's a lot easier to see in photograph form. So, much reprofiling of the recess is too small. So you basically got a female slot and a male plug, and they just don't fit. A terrible fit. And terrible fit of the actual fuselage when it goes into these wings. It was much too big, the fuselage, much too wide, so that had to be reprofiled. Much sanding and reprofiling needed. Now this is when I start to get a little bit irritated with them. Because this business about, this is what I was trying to explain about, don't blame me, because we've got a top and a bottom tailplane, horizontal stabiliser, but the slot is only in one half of that, so I can have no influence in the way I build it affecting the thickness of it. So it's not like I've made it too thick by having too much adhesive or a filler, or it's actually just one piece. It's as it comes. That piece and the slot it has to go into do not fit. They are not compatible at all. Now how can they get that wrong? We've talked about Eduard before about the beautiful surface detail, and it is really good. It is. But how can they get that so fine and so accurate, and yet they can't even match Matchbox from 1972 with things like this? And that's not, I'm not joking, yeah? You wouldn't see that sort of ill-fitting on a Matchbox back in the 70s, 50 years ago. That is not forgivable or explainable to me. All this tells me is that, and this is my rant really, here it is, it's a rant, isn't it? But all this tells me is that they're not doing, you know, post-design build tests on the kits. Somebody wrote to me in one of the comments on the YouTube channel, and he said, haha, you were joking, and I know you were half joking, but I know for a fact that that's true. Now, I don't know whether this person had worked there or knew somebody who worked there, at Eduard over in Prague. I don't know. But that comment was made to me, and I'm starting to think he's right, because it is not explainable. Airfix get this better. Airfix do this much better. They're not perfect, they have issues, and I'm quick to point them out. But this is the most basic issue of all. The basic fit of parts like that. The tailplanes going into the fuselage. And you'll see in the photographs, it goes in so far, you've got to reprofile it, you've got to work on it. Now, this is the third decade of the 21st century, and I think that that is ridiculous. I'm sorry. This is a manufacturer of model kits that everybody says is one of the best and better than Tamiya. Well, you clearly haven't built this kit. I don't know what planet these people are on that keep saying these comments, because it makes no sense. This is real. This is not something I've influenced in any way. This is just the parts do not fit. How can they get the tolerances out? I reckon they're out 1.5mm, maybe even 2 in total. That's a huge amount. It's like a light year in terms of this sort of nature of engineering. It's just awful, awful. And again, the fuselage, which I say went together all right, but did not match the gap that it has to go into between the two wings at the wing root. Absolutely incredible. So that had to be reprofiled. I got it all done. You've seen it. It all looks great now. But this is poor. The Matchbox could do this better. How can Eduard claim to be a leading manufacturer when they're producing kits that are this bad? One of their more recent kits. It's just not forgivable. And then it goes on, and then we get into more. One or two areas. You see, this is the thing that bugs me about them as well. It seems to me that some of the most difficult things to achieve for a manufacturer, they do brilliantly, and the things that should come second nature for a company of that type in the modern era, they just don't seem to be able to do it, and I just don't understand how that can be. I genuinely don't understand it. Let me show you. So here we've got some complicated stuff. We've got the engine. This all went together very well. There were issues though. So we had on the sprue, which I'll show you again in the photo in a minute, issues about the way they have the sprue attachment points, which I'll talk a lot about when I show the photos. Lots of issues with sprue attachment points and the wisdom of them. These had a sprue attachment point on every single push rod, which made it an absolute nightmare to clean up, completely unnecessary in my opinion. And these parts, like this here, this little ring, were so fine, it just snapped. Even when I was very gently using the nipper on it, the finest nipper, very gentle, and it just snapped. That's how weak it was. So there's some basic errors, again, the way that they're actually engineering the attachment points. This fit of these parts looks like it all slots together. It was abysmal. I had to work on that to make it work as well. Over on the other page, things that look really complicated, completely over-engineered with this. They have this like a flange that you put it on. What's the word I'm looking for? Airfix do this as well. Where you have the word has escaped me. Well, come on, guys. What more? It's a false thing. It's just there to position. It's a. I'm going to say a grid. My mind's gone. My mind's gone. I've got into rant mode and I can't think what I'm trying to say here. It's basically there to be a positioning tool, so that you position everything. It's completely over-engineered. It doesn't need it, to be honest. You could have done that quite easily without it, I think. So that was a bit over the top. Sorry, I've gone quiet because I'm still trying to think of the word I'm looking for. Airfix used them on the Mosquito. Pramjit used them on the Mosquito. Well, he had masks, didn't he? But this is basically an engineering tool where it's just there to make sure everything goes in its correct position. And they did it quite well. All these parts went together fine. And again, parts you'd expect to be tricky. No problem at all. Parts you expect to go straight in without even thinking about, they don't work. This is what I can't get my head around. Jig is the word. I've got that. I knew it had an I in it. It's a jig. So it's a jig really, just to position everything around it. Sorry about that. I'm just going to have a quick gulp of coffee. Just bear with me a second. I'm just going to slurp. It's coffee, I promise you. Yeah, so they have this jig, and all unnecessary, I thought. Completely out of tea. Now we get into some of the areas where it was very weak, I thought, the kit. And it's on the gear, for example. So look at this. I know you'll see my rather overbearing writing, but it's there for a reason, yeah. So what we got here, you've got the gear leg, and you've got the wheel, and this attachment is very weak. This is why I say weak. Very poor. The locations, and this is what Eduard seems to have a lot of. Very poor location, very, very unsatisfying tolerances. Then you've got your cover for the leg, and it shows it here, and I've put here poor fit dream on, and you end up with it not like that because the parts just do not mate up together accurately. They are the wrong dimensions, the tolerances are wrong, and it goes on and on and on from there. Same again on the other leg. Poor weak location, a very, very poor fit. They show these little flap doors, secondary doors going in, which are just terrible and don't have any proper location at all. You've got to be extremely creative and very, very gentle. Then you've got the inner doors, gear doors, these little flaps. Again, very poor location. They have a hole they're supposed to locate into for the actuators, and it doesn't match up. It doesn't match up accurately at all. And worst of all, the basic hole for the leg, it's actually better, slightly better than it was on something like the Tempest, the Mark V, the first one, and I mean the first version they came out with. The one that was chasing the flying bomb on the artwork. There is actually a hole this time, which there wasn't for that, and there wasn't on the bloody Mirage either. But it's just not a convincing fit, and you know, this is taking the weight of your model. I'm going to zoom out now, Royal Moan. This is not a minor issue. This is taking the whole weight of the model, and these parts, you know, I reviewed the Tamiya Zero, and I know that will go together in a completely different way to this, and it will lock in place, and it will be strong, and things will fit together properly. Eduard just seemed to be so focused on making them look good. They seem to... I don't know. I'm not trying to make an allegation, but it comes across as though they never actually build them and never actually tried to put them together. How can they be that bad? Even the fit of the two halves of the fuel tank, which I decided not to use. I thought it spoiled the lines of the Zero. But another reason was also, when I put it together, it was a really crap fit. It had a really nasty seam. And the pins didn't seem to match up very well. It just goes on and on. And then we've got this sort of kinetic style in the instructions, and there's quite a few bits of this. Vagueness, that's a great word actually to describe a lot of this. Extraordinary vagueness. And they have this thing where they have this habit of an arrow that just goes, over there, where? Where? Because I can tell you that this PE part and the plastic are not profiled in the same shape. Yeah? They're not in the same shape. They're not the same shape in terms of side profile or front to rear profile. And you have to create everything and build it up and faff around with super glue. It just doesn't fit. It's just, and this pointing, it means nothing. It's like someone who's not got full intelligence. What does that mean? Remember what we had with the Sukimura, yeah, showing you before, after, how it should look, showing it from different angles. This doesn't know how it should look. It goes there somewhere. Where does it go? Pointing an arrow pointing to another part. And you think, oh, well, it obviously makes up. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It was poor, this. And this is exactly what I had on the Mirage, which was an old kit. So they haven't learned. Yeah, it's a modern new kit, this. It's only 3 years old. There's no excuse. Another thing was, if you want the closed canopy, that was a crap fit. So I went for the open canopy because I was going to have it closed. But of course, there's no pilot. They don't provide a pilot. So you can't have it in flight. But the closed canopy was really poor anyway. The fit was terrible. Open is great. And then finally, and this sums it all up, same sort of thinking of not thinking things through. Look at this. The propeller and spinner. You can't have it turn. It has to be glued in place. There is no polycap. It has to be fixed. It's just crude. It's bloody awful. This is like a frog kit from 1971. In fact, sometimes I think they did have spinning props. This is poor. I don't know how people are going to defend against that. This is competing with Airfix and Tamiya, yeah, ICM, etc, etc, etc. Maybe not this particular aircraft, but you know what I mean. They have you can have so you can't have your propeller. You can't turn it into a different position for display purpose. No, it has to be glued in. Why? Yeah, so you've got no flaps, you've got no propeller, you can't position your propeller, you've got one of the canopies doesn't really fit properly, and you've got all these other parts, you've got weak legs on the undercarriage. I give up. And then you've got those damn decals. Well, of course, you'll be pleased to know that I did not use those decals. Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Because they worked. These are from Tech Mod, these ones. Now, I was listening to it's Phil Flory last week. He was talking actually on one of his shows. I just picked this up. I didn't see it live. He was talking about, I think he was using ASK decals. He had a terrible time with them, and he was making a comment there at the end. And Matt Ball, his colleague, was agreeing with him, and they were talking generally about aftermarket decals, and they were both saying, and I agree with them. They were saying that they feel that there's been a deterioration in the quality of aftermarket decals generally. Now, these Tech Mod, I'm just going to zoom in. The Tech Mod ones, which we have here, which look fine and dandy. However, they weren't that brilliant either. The issue I had is kind of the opposite of Phil Flory actually with these ASK decals. These Tech Mods will not leave the carrier paper. They do not want to come away, I can tell you, absolutely not. Which I thought was very, very odd. They're also not the greatest at conforming, and they weren't really either the strongest. When I got the, I won't show you any minor tiny flaws, for obvious reasons, but when I started hitting them with the microsol, they were very easy to start not disintegrating, but oh, there we go. I tasted what I had last week. No, they started to discolour and the colour started coming up and really degrading, you know. So they weren't that brilliant actually. So that was a little bit of a concern. That was the Tecmo ones, and of course we know the Eduard ones are absolutely abysmal. Anyway, without further ado, I want to go through the photographs to show you some physical examples. I'm just going to have a quick drink. And I'm going to have, excuse me, cough sweet, Strepsils. I need one. Just because it's quite warm in here actually. Have the cough sweet, hold on. Oh, gulp. Right. What I'm going to do now is show you these photographs and talk you through, and then you'll see very graphically and you will understand why I'm not happy. Excuse me. Right, okay. So, there we go. What I'll do, I'm going to move that over there. I'll have that there. So, let's have a look then. Here's all your photo etch. It's going to kill my light. There we go. So here's all your photo etch, which is, I used about 3/4 of it, didn't use all of it. And then we got, here's what I was talking about these sprue gates. Excuse me. Especially here. Now look at this. Look at the nightmare cleanup you're going to have here. I'm going to switch that off. Right, so it's not necessary to do it that way. Other manufacturers don't. They don't need to have a contact point on every single part, every single push rod like they've done there. That was a pain in the backside, it really was. But moving on, I'll just flick through these because they don't show anything much. Here we go. Twin axis sprue gate contact points. So here we've got a situation where you've got two different axes where you have to do the cleanup on. Some of the Eduard fanboys seem to think this is a great idea. I don't know why. Tamiya have occasionally done it themselves, but they seem to have dropped it, thank God. So you've got to snip it that way, and then you've got to snip it this way as well. And you've got to be very careful. This is doubling the amount of work that is required with the cleanup. Now here again, and this is a wider sort of moan about sprue gate contact. Look how thick that is. They go from super fine contact points to these really Neanderthal ones. Look at that. It's absolutely horrendous. And there's a bit of painting going on, a bit of painting. Yeah, some nice shots of me working away here, doing all this work. And it is, you know, if you're patient, you end up with, you know, really quite a nice interior cockpit. And it did, you know, it has come out looking really well. Now this is the one I talked about where you have this very vague here. It doesn't lock together well. They're incredibly vague. So what happened was, and it's not that obvious in the photo, but when you actually came then to put the you drop the cockpit upside down into the actual fuselage, and you end up with the gun slightly misaligned. So I had to use plastic card and all sorts to pack it back to get it in the right angle. All unnecessary work. In a Tamiya kit, Zokimura probably as well, even Airfix, I think that would have been a solid location, it would have gone in properly, and it wouldn't be this sort of vagueness. And this is one of my biggest moans about the Eduard ranges. There's a vagueness in the instructions and vagueness in the actual way the parts fit together. There are so many areas where they don't even have a location hole, things like the little ladder that's on the side, where we've got the the crew ladder, the step-up ladder. There's no hole for that. I had to drill holes in it. Well, it doesn't tell you to. You've just got to find this out by accident. Anyway. Oh, you can see there. I mean, it does look nice, you know, don't get me wrong. There are elements of the kit that I really enjoyed working on. But they just kept on spoiling it with all these other silly things that kept happening. Now there's your full cockpit with the guns. Little oxygen bottles. That's the cockpit when it's been dropped in. Now this is the area where I've just mentioned. You can't really tell in the photo, but here we've got the gun, and this gun is this gun that we had the problem with. That one was fine. This one was off a silly angle, and what it kept doing was it kept dropping inside because there's actually a cutout there, and it dropped inside, and it was clearly looking terrible. That would not look right. So I used some excuse me. I used some blue tack and I used some plastic card and I sort of packed it internally to make it force it over at the right angle. But it shouldn't have been necessary, that was just bad design. Various shots of your cockpit, looking really nice. Here we go again. These silly sprue gate contact points where you've got to cut it in both dimensions. You've got to be so careful that you don't overcut it, and you've got to faff around then, rubbing it down, doing twice as much work as you would expect to have to do. Here again. So it's on the leading edge and then it's on the inside edge as well. Well, I hate this, I think it's absolutely terrible. Look at it, this big step. You've got to cut it that way and you've got to cut it that way. I'm a bit low on power here. It's just showing size. Now this, can you see? That shows the overlap of the leading edge, which I complained about. Can you see that? How it's sitting proud. It's fine at the other end. It's absolutely bob on, but it's just not quite the right dimensions. That is very annoying. Sorry, but that is just not on. Sorry. Let's get back to it. So there you go. Now we've got more sprue gate. Sorry. I think we need to zoom back, don't we? Then we've got more sprue gate contact points, which are just horribly, horribly crude. Viciously crude, I'd say. A complete inconsistency of them. Now we get to the really big problem. So again, we've got these horrible contact points, and then when you cut it off, here you've got beautiful, fine contact points. Total inconsistency. Why? So you've got this is the part that hasn't got the plug on it. No plug on that side, plug on that side. So you're not connecting two sides together, so you're not going to influence this when you build it, its thickness in any way. And yet, here we go. Now this is the killer photo. Now, can you actually see, it's quite tricky I know, but look at the thickness of this compared to the thinness of the slot. That is way too big to fit into that. Now I find this astonishing, really. In the 21st century, this is after I've done all the work on it. On the other side, I took this photo so you can see that's as far as it would go. And that was the better fit of the two of them. So obviously you've got to do a lot of work to, you know, to rub it down. And it wasn't easy because you've got to get the shape right. You don't want to make it loose. So that had to be completely reworked. This is basic stuff. I don't understand how that can be. That's afterwards. And I use sprue glue, and you can see we've got quite a nice joint there. But you shouldn't need to be doing that on a kit like this. It's supposed to be from the best supplier and one of the best suppliers in the market. Then we've got this piece here, which I did allude to earlier. This plug in here, that was a lousy fit as well. It's just like they've never tried to test it. Make sure it all goes together properly. And then you get to this is the part I mentioned that broke because it was so weak. These are all those little push rods which had horrendous cleanup on them, really bad. Just by bad design on the sprue. And then we get to the more pleasurable bit. But even here, look, another classic. This is the guns. So poorly designed was this sprue that they had them like that, sticking out, and it just broken off at some point. Well, it's no wonder really. There it is. It's no wonder it broke off because there's nothing to protect it. That's bad design. What's the matter with them? And this is me working on the decals. And then we get to the more pleasurable end of the build, you know, and it's me with my flory grime wash, just to give it a light griming. Here we're obviously taking off the... Oh yeah, that's another thing I should mention. Of course, the kit comes with an Eduard mask set. Even they weren't right. About 2/3 of them were okay, but about 1/3, the dimensions were oversized. I had to trim them with a pair of scissors. Well, what's the point of having a pre-cut mask set? They can't get the size right. That was very frustrating, I've got to be honest. I mean, that's the whole point of buying them. Otherwise, you might as well have it like Tamiya and cut out your own. And they were literally just about 1 millimetre, maybe a bit more, 1.25 too wide, especially on these big panels. So that was frustrating. It was great once it's done, of course. This is me taking the masks off near the end. And this is when it starts to really come to life, and you start to forget all the pain you've been through a little bit, because it starts to look really nice, you know. Look at the gun sight there, see that? This is the gun sight I had all the trouble with trying to find out exactly how it fitted. That was very poor. But then it starts to really come together at the end. We got the masking okay, and we got, yeah, got the cockpit nice. That's come out really well. There's a gun sight, look. You see it there, can't you? But everything's a bit of a battle, and it shouldn't be. It doesn't need to be a battle. It shouldn't be fighting you all the way. And it just became a kit that you think, well, I've just had enough of this, really. And when these are the last parts to go on. And when I came to these lights, I thought, oh yes. This is the Tech Mod decal set. The alternative decal. So this is the carrier Hiryu. And it's Pilot Lieutenant Sumio Nono. And then I've got my easy line for the radio aerial, which I duly put on. It has these little tiny lights. It has 2 lights on both wings, right in the middle of the meatball. And then you've got these, slightly unsatisfied with the legs, I've got to say. I'm not convinced that they're absolutely right. That, even if you follow the instructions on those legs, they want you to cut part of them off and use PE. Well, they were weak enough as it was, especially with the bad fit with the actual the doors covers. You're going to struggle with it. You're going to find it a real bit of a battle, to be quite honest. And then at the end we come down to the final shots of yeah, it does look quite nice, really. And I say, I'm pretty satisfied with the way it's come out, especially given though I've not been well and it's fought me all the way. So really quite satisfying, But that sums it up, doesn't it, really? That does sum it up, I think. Yes, very satisfying build in the end, but... And I'm not sure I feel the passion for it like I did with the Sea Harrier, because the Sea Harrier was a disaster. That I made good, really good. This wasn't quite as bad as the Kinetic, but just frustrated me because, everybody's saying, well, you need to build one of the modern ones, it's no good burning about the old ones. And I did build one of the modern ones, and that was the outcome. So, there you have it. So, I wouldn't recommend it to you. I wouldn't say don't buy it, but just be advised. I've gone through quite a few issues you're going to have there. It's so I'm just jumping on my suite. There we go. Have we actually got the faster version? Yes, that's the high-speed version. And it's come out as a really nice model. And I'm glad I built it. But there we go. So, in summary, it doesn't really live up to expectations. A little bit disappointed. But we do have a very nice result, a nice 0 in the cabinet. So, I'm going to give it a final score, after build review, 6.5 out of 10. Now that's better than the Sea Harrier did, but it sort of flatters to deceive you all the time. There are parts of it you think, some of the parts that I expected would be a real nightmare to fit were easy, And literally the easy parts were nightmarish. So things like the little lights, they all went in beautifully, you know. Even the little aerial went in beautifully. The fit of the canopy, once you got the open version, the fit of the canopy open version was actually really good. So the canopy, all these parts that other people struggle with, and then things like, you know, the tail planes and the undercarriage were terrible. I'm sorry, but I don't understand it. I'm not going to be buying any more Eduards. If people want to send me Eduard for review, I'll certainly review them. I'm not going to invest any more of my cash for the time being. I'm sick of being told by these people, oh, you're anti this, you're anti that. I'm not anti anything. I'm just anti bad kits. Half of that is brilliant. It's almost like, you know, it's almost like you got someone from Zukimura or Tamiya did the scanning and the surface quality, and somebody from Kinetic did the rest. It's like a game of two halves, a tale of two cities, a tale of two zeros. Half of it is terrible, half of it's fantastic. It's just a bit frustrating. You can't. I'm sure they can achieve a better standard than that. They need to QC and check and test build these and not release the kit until they've got it right. Because there's no way that is a better kit than the Tamiya. I don't care about the surface detail. You will not enjoy building this as much as you will enjoy building the Tamiya. My friend David lent us the Tamiya version, which came with those figures, didn't it? Something else got figures as well, you know? No figures in it. So it's very limiting. I just don't think they're worth the money. I think they're overrated, Eduard. I still feel that way. The most overrated manufacturer, I'm afraid, in my view. Sorry, that's the way it is. They're writing checks they can't cash, basically. You know, and when you look at them in the box, you think, oh, do you review it? It's like, I've done it. Oh, it's fun. It's wonderful, wonderful. And then you actually come to build it, and you've got these basic, silly things where you're thinking, well, you couldn't have built this. You would have known that this was not good. And I think they need to sort out the quality control. You need to get rid of those stupid decals. I don't care if 20% of the modelling community can use them fine. 80% can't. Alright, you can argue about the numbers. But a huge number of people are put off by those. They want to pursue with them. They're fine. They're just limiting their customer base. Crackers. There's no sense in it whatsoever. So at the end, I'm rather frustrated. Very disappointed. 6.5 out of 10. I think is a generous score. And I want to see my friends that have been sharing the photos and my exasperation along the way. You know, fighting this thing on silly things that should be straightforward. They'll think I've been very generous, I think. Having seen the battles I've been through in detail. But I didn't want to bore you too much and I didn't want to be too negative. I'm trying to, you know, Eduard, just listen to the bloody customer, yeah? Get your act together. Stop being so bloody arrogant. Sorry, but that's what's going on here. People don't like the decals. Get over it, yeah? If the majority don't like the decals and you persist with them, then you're just killing your own sales potential. Fact. Marketing lesson 101. And 2, for God's sake, do more QC work. I can't believe that you're releasing kits with, you know, things that Matchbox got right in 1972 and you can't get them right today. Absolutely ridiculous. And breathe. And breathe. Right, well that's enough. It's a lovely model. I'm very pleased with the way I've produced it. All things considered, I think it's great. And that is an end to it. So, enough of that. How about a quick update at the end then? What's next? Well, I think I might end up putting a rant in the title of this video because that would be the honest thing to do. Those of you that don't like me ranting all the time, you can now breathe a sigh of relief because I think that's going to be the last rant for a long time, because today I'm recording this on the 18th of February and that means it's the 80th anniversary of the raid on the Amiens prison in northern France at noon local time. So frankly, we're going to be building our beautiful Tamiya Mosquito. All of these irritations and frustrations and ranting and moaning that I've been doing can become a thing of the past. Because we've got this beautiful kit to look forward to building. And I've put it off for too long. I've had this kit for 9 years. It was given to me as a gift 9 years ago. It's too long, it's too long. It would have got built sooner, actually, if I'd thought I could actually accommodate it, which I don't think I could easily with my old cabinet, but then I had another cabinet which has got slightly better dimensions. I am bound to open this because I know one or two of you would just want me to open it and have a look, especially if you haven't got the kit. I am going to have a little sneak peek in here. Where is my blade gun? It's just... I think this has got to be opened. I'm not going to do a review because we've seen it before, but I think it's time. I always said I was going to start it today, and I may actually cut the piece off the sprue today, just to say I've started it, like digging the first sod of a building project. This has been too long. Waited far too long for this one. Whoops. Yeah. There we are. The waves of relief are just washing over me already. Look at it, it's just sensible sprue gate contact points, yeah? Parts that will go together properly. Something that has been researched and tested and developed before going onto the market, where you know you're not going to find meaningless instructions that go with an arrow pointing towards the fuselage, saying nothing about where something is actually supposed to locate. Beautiful instructions, proper paint guides. I feel like I'm on holiday almost. It's almost like I can hear seagulls and the seashore in the background, relaxing me. Oh, look at this. What is there not to like here? It's been too long. I shouldn't have put it off this long, should I? Really? Oh. Yeah, and I mentioned it's the anniversary of the Amiens prison raid, of course, and 18th of February. And sadly, the pilot of this aircraft, F for Freddy, of course, was Percy Pickard, and his co-pilot Alan Broadley, who sadly died in the raid. The raid was successful. He was squadron leader, and he led the operation into the prison where they were going to breach the walls and let these French POWs escape. Well, they were, say, POWs. Most of them were free French resistance fighters. And the idea was that they were going to help, allegedly, because there's lots of different opinions on this, and I've got a book here actually, The Jail Busters, rather a handy book. One of many you can get about this subject. As I say, today I'm recording this on the day of the anniversary. Charles Pick, Percy Pickard, Group Captain Pickard. And he said, and I'm going to quote you, he said, "It's a job of death or glory, boys. You'll have to burst the gates open of the jail. If it succeeds, it'll be one of the most worthwhile ops of the war. If you never do anything else, you can still count this as the best job you've ever done." And of course, sadly, he did not survive, him and Alan Broadley. They basically came in with the second wave, saw the first wave had been successful, decided there was no need to drop their weapons, but while they were circling doing the reconnaissance, he sent the second wave off back to base, and he got caught by two Focke-Wulf 190s, one of which managed to get a bead on him, and because he hadn't dropped his bombs, he still had his bomb line on. Several people have commented about this when I did my previous video about it and said Mosquito should outfly the Focke-Wulf, it's got more power and blah blah blah. Yeah, but he had his full bomb load on, so he was weighed down, and that's what happened. He was flying quite low. It was very it was a little bit foggy. It was wintry conditions, icy, so he probably didn't have the same levels of control of the aircraft as you would on a warmer day in terms of manoeuvrability. And the Focke-Wulf got a bead on him and shot his tail off. And unfortunately, he just fell out of the sky and spun down and crashed at the corner of a copse near Saint Gratien, little village. Anyway, there we go. very sad, but he was a successful raid, and I'm going to depict his very aircraft because I've always thought he was a very heroic character. Broadley and Picard today are buried at the Amiens cemetery, only about 100 yards away from the prison, just round the corner. I intend to go visit that. I want to go see that grave, and I want to go see the prison again. I've been there once before, but I had trouble locating it, which is another story. But this kit for me, I need this badly. I said about not wanting to build any more crap kits, and I didn't think that Eduard Zero was going to be a crap kit, but kind of was a little bit in the end. Now I just want to focus on enjoying putting it together, doing a nice job of the things like the weathering, and although of course the Mosquito, with it being made of plywood mainly, it hasn't got the panel lines that other aircraft have, so you have to take a view on the way you go around weathering. But there we are. It just requires a slightly different technique. But we've got premium plastic here. We've got two beautiful Merlin engines. I can detail them up, adding stuff to that. I've got extra guns. There's all sorts of extras. Let me show you for those of you who haven't seen already. We've got instrument kit from Eduard. Well, may not use that. We've got the gun feed chutes from Barracuda cast resin. It's going to be brilliant. So those are nice. Then we've got, even better, we've got master model, a beautiful pitot and gun set, the cannons and the 303 machine guns. Brilliant. Got the inevitable mask set, of course. Let's hope they're the right dimensions this time. We've also got a lovely set of HGW Eduard seat belts. And last but not least, we have got our Rolls-Royce engine badge. Whoops, trouble with the focus. Nameplates for our engine. So very nice. Anything else? Or is that it? I think that's it. And of course, lots of material to go with it, which I'll show you a little bit of actually. Now, when I first mentioned I was going to do this, there's a couple of people on the Flory forum, and I think one or two of the viewers on YouTube have said they might join me and do their own Mosquito. Well, you're very welcome. It's a bit of a group build or whatever. I shan't complain. More the merrier. A bit of support if we're all doing it, I'm having trouble getting my lock out back. Yeah, so yeah, lots and lots of goodies. That's going to be thoroughly enjoyable for me. This is, for me, what modelling is all about. It's about enjoying a bit of history, learning, and a sufficiently good kit that you get some sort of knowledge about the product, about the aircraft in this case. It's immersive. It's immersive. It's not just building plastic kits. A little bit more to it than that. I also have. I'm just going to bring in my Zero just over there to put it safely. I've also got Brett Green's lovely book here. I can recommend this one to you if you're going to build this kit. How to build Tamiya's 132 Mosquito. Brett Green and Chris Warchop. Some great reference photos here from various Mosquito. Just be a little bit wary because obviously some of these are restored ones and they can be a little bit misleading, but you've got here different versions here. They've done a what's that, Mark 19. They've actually done several different versions. What's in the box? And I'm going to take my time with this kit. I'm not going to race this one because I really want to just enjoy it, really. Immerse myself in it all. But this is a really nice sort of Amiens Raider, here we are. The very one for me, look. There's also the Aussie one. Is it Aussie? Yeah, Borneo. Australian Air Force. Borneo. Amiens Raider. Look at that. It's really good. Effects. A little bit hints on weathering. It's sort of staining, isn't it, rather than panel lines. A little bit of staining. You see he's got a quite effective bit of staining on that cover actually. So there's that one. In addition, we have got all sorts of reference books. We've got Fly Past about the Mosquito, 75th anniversary of the Mosquito that was. Scale Aviation Mower, Diablo and Mosquito, talking about the Tamiya kit. And yeah, they've got again a wealth of reference here. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So if you're interested in any of these magazines, just give me a shout with a message and I'll tell you which ones they are in terms of dates and things. And then we've got Fly Past Special, celebrating the Wooden Wonder, 75 years of the Wooden Wonder. Just about the Mosquito. There's so much in this. It's basically a huge magazine book. It just goes on and on and on. Brilliant references. Got American ones, got Israeli mosquitoes, you name it, it's all there. And then the aviation guide, Mosquito FB6. So this is absolutely right. There's so much detail here, going into a lot of depth, right down to the nuts and bolts and the fine engineering of how things fit together. You know, the radiators, some proper close-up wing structure, extraordinary detail. Just what you want. I mean, it just basically breaks down the whole aircraft. Landing gear, how it operates, how it retracts, hydraulic and pneumatic systems. Absolutely fantastic. The cockpit, what every instrument is. I mean, these references are just gold dust, aren't they, really? You know, I'm going to spend more time reading than I'm modelling probably. Anyway, there we go. So that's the update. So I'm going to cut one of these sprues just to say I've done it on the 18th, on the anniversary of the Amiens raid. I'll give you a link to my Amiens raid little talk I did as well at the bottom. And with that, I shall leave you. Now, I will be back, cough permitting. We've got some very interesting things to look at. We've got the new ICM catalogue, and we've got lots of new kits from ICM, and that we have a bit of a backlog of those because I haven't been able to do any recording because I've been so unwell. So you're going to be spoiled now. You've been starved of me for 3 weeks. Some of you might be pleased, but that you will find a lot more activity from me now. I think catching up, so to speak. So stay tuned. We've got some really nice kits coming in from ICM. Some very interesting and varied ones again. Definitely worth a look, so please stay tuned. In the meantime, that's it from me. That's it from the zero. I probably won't speak of Eduard again for a while, I'm afraid. But you will be getting regular updates on this, and I'll be showing you regular updates. What I might do is, because it's such a big project, I might do you a little update show just about this, and I'll show you the photographs I take, because I'm not doing videos of building it. It's just long and boring. But I'll take photos like I always do along the way through the build, and I think in the update I'll actually show you the sort of weeks or months progress. I've actually allocated myself 6 months for this, so I'm expecting to finish it basically August bank holiday weekend is the target. Whether I manage that I don't know. I might do it sooner, probably not, but that is the plan. And I am just going to, because I'm not going to have to fight this, I will be able to A, obviously enjoy it, B, relax, not be ranting, not be moaning, because I don't want to do any more of that. I've just had enough of it, really, really. It's all very well for bringing in the viewers on YouTube, but you don't want to be doing it when it's false, and there'll be no ranting and everything here. That's all. So this is going to be me like a reset button, a reboot, where I go back and you'll see me with a much happier disposition, much more relaxed and calm and more interesting, and hopefully if you've got this kit yourself you might find it very interesting to follow along. So I'll try and give you a bit more information as we go along, and showing the stages and the steps. Anyway, in the meantime, my voice is just about going, so I'm going to call it a day today. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found it interesting. Sorry I was a bit hard on Eduard, but you know, that was my experience of the kit, and it did not really live up to expectations, and I only hope, you know, I said before that they're doing some of the hard stuff really well, so it isn't that difficult. It's their mindset. If they do seem very stubborn, Eduard. If they don't change, then people are going to be put off their products. You know, they've already lost a chunk of customers because of the decals. I don't know how other people get on, but I like to do things in a very precise way, and I expect the manufacturer to do the same, and they don't seem to be doing that. Everything's a bit back of a fag packet, and I don't like it. So I'm not going to be bothering with that anymore. I'm going to be focused on things like this. So we've got this. Then we're going to run through to, say, end of August. Hopefully, then we're going to do the FW190 from Zokimura. And then around Christmas time, we're planning to do the Tamiya Final Countdown Tomcat F14A. That's the plan. Whether it'll happen, who knows. But we'll certainly get this started, get it underway, and I'll keep you up to speed. So, thank you for joining me very much. Thank you for all the support you've given me when I've not been too well. Really appreciate that. When you are feeling really down, you know, it helps a lot. And that's the trouble with YouTube. If you're not too well, you can't really go on. You can't go on Vision on TV if you're coughing your guts up and you horrible throat and all sorts of problems. But I'm sure many others have had it as well. So I certainly wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't think it was really nasty. Way worse than COVID. Didn't enjoy that at all. But I've had 3 health issues recently. My wife said, well, you had your 3 now, so that's it. You should be okay. So thumbs up, all should be well. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. Please give us a thumbs up. Give me a 10 out of 10. Even though I could only manage 6.5 for that. Please give me 10 out of 10 with a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. If you are a subscriber, don't forget to ding the notification bell. And make sure you click the all notifications. And until next time, which will not be too far in the future, I think. Thanks very much for watching. Please stay well, stay safe, look after yourselves. Thanks for your time. See you soon. Bye for now.